Today I wanted to talk to you about the state of the translation industry. In doing so, I'm going to be using this blog post by Translatorpreneur, but then also some other numbers and statistics. I'll leave a link to everything in the description below, but in this blog post by Translatorpreneur, he talks about how there's been a rise in the number of translators who are looking for part-time employment or exiting entirely. And he says the translation industry is not messed up, it is shifting. And I agree with this. And he talks about the difference between just the translation and the exceptional translation. And you have these people who perform exceptional translations, who usually work with customers directly and make a great living doing so. Unfortunately, when they reveal their rates or revenues to other translators, they're often not believed. And I've seen this. I've seen both. I've seen a lot of people leaving the industry entirely, and you see this on LinkedIn and elsewhere. But I've seen also people talk about how much they earn and kind of get criticism because of it, saying, well, that's not true, that can't be right, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, typically they want to keep quiet because they don't want to tell too many people. Anyway, he goes on, and his conclusion is that you need to invest in yourself. If you're willing to put in the effort now, but also for the remainder of your career, that's it. End of story. Now, I agree, but I think there's more to the story. And I'm going to use some statistics and numbers, look into it, and try to derive some conclusions. So let's get into it and let's look at the future of the translation industry. So here, Optimational has an article on the top 5 translation industry trends, and it saw, an increased use of machine translation post-editing. I don't think that's news to anyone. More brands are reaching global audiences through transcreation and translation. The rise of e-learning platforms, which is interesting, but yeah, there's a lot of online learning going, and so in fact, I know translators who specialize specifically in e-learning websites, online courses and the like. So I found that interesting. Along those lines, there's video translation, subtitling services, and here it shows growing demand for translation and interpreting services in general. In its latest update, US News ranked interpreters and translators as number 4 on their list of best creative and media jobs. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics projects the employment of interpreters and translators to grow by 20% from 2019 to 2029. And this rate is much faster than the average for all occupations. So there is growth in this industry. It's happening. And again, we see, medical translation and video remote interpreting. There are a lot of things that are happening here as well, multilingual SEO strategies. So certain industries are definitely growing, becoming more global, more worldwide, and so there is more demand for translation. But let's get a bit more into detail. And here we see the future of language, emerging top translation trends for 2024. And I'm going to scroll down. Once again, you can read this on your own time if you want. But let's talk about the latest translation trends for 2024. Obviously, it talks about AI and NMT and technological advancements, AI and translation, etc. It also has language demand shifts and talks about various different countries. I don't take too much stock in this. I think a lot of this is guesswork and just looking at the trends and see if they continue, and that's fine. But here I found this interesting. According to Global Newswire, the global translation services market is expected to reach a staggering value of $53.5 billion by 2032, expanding a compound annual growth of 2.7%. And this is fueled by globalization and trade. There's a lot more of this going on, and it's often behind the scenes, but there's a lot of it. Technological advancements, we all know about this, machine translation, AI, etc. And multilingual content creation. The growing demand for multilingual content across various industries, marketing, e-commerce, education. You see a lot of people buying stuff internationally, a lot more than ever before. I remember a time when people were still uncomfortable just buying online, but lately it's been buying online from abroad. But now there's a lot more of buying online internationally, and people are a lot more comfortable with that. And a lot of that involves translations. The need for human translators is not diminished. So you might be thinking, okay, well, we're seeing a lot of growth in industry. That's great. But since we have this significant role of AI and machine learning, that means that we're all going to be earning less money and everyone's going to be using AI. That's not exactly true. Like the original blog mentioned, there's going to be a separation. So let's delve a little bit more into this, looking at numbers once again. So here we have an article from Redokun. It's very long. I won't get into it, but I really like how it lists the source for everything that it talks about and discusses. So you can actually click on where, where it gets all the information from. But let's scroll down a bit more, and then we see here the top 100 language companies have been increasing their market share year on year, but they still only represent approximately 15% of the entire market. So top 100 companies, we all know them: TransPerfect, Lionbridge, all the biggest ones. They only represent 15% of the entire market. The translation industry is probably one of the most fragmented, if not the most fragmented industry out there. 85% of global language services are held by small to mid-sized companies. So do not take what's going on in the big companies like TransPerfect as canon. It's not what's going on with most of the people out there, because most people are working for small agencies, and in fact, small agencies are who you want to be working for. You do not want to be working for these big companies. And I don't like to generalize, but I'm going to generalize there. A couple other things to keep in mind. Freelance translators who are members of professional associations charge 30% more than those who are not. So if you have a professional association in your area, in your industry, in your language combination, in your specialization, whatever it might be, maybe look into joining them, because it could be beneficial. Another thing here, on average, freelance translators with 1 to 2 narrow specializations charge 29% more than those without specialist areas. And we don't need to get into much more. Now, I've thrown a bunch of numbers and statistics to you, but what's the conclusion to all of this? Well, the conclusion that I get from all of this is a couple things. First of all, like I've mentioned many times before, you should niche, and you should find your niche and stick with it. Like it says here, 1 to 2 narrow specializations, and you can charge more for them. It's always, because a lot of people say, what's the most popular industry now? What's the most popular language combination? You don't want to be thinking that way. You want to be thinking about narrowing your specialization, because then you can charge more. If you can say, I'm the best Polish to English translator for game localization in the world, that's going to be very valuable to you. You might think, well, there are fewer clients, but you'll basically have a monopoly on the clients who want high-level translations. When people are looking for the Google Translate and the cheap version, you don't want any part of that. You want the ones who pay more for something that is high quality. So you find your specialization, you find your niche. Try to work with smaller agencies. Don't work with the big ones, but try to contact a lot of smaller agencies, maybe who specialize in what your niche and specialization is, so you can work with them. And another thing I would do to get ahead of the curve is, you'll notice a lot of these companies who want to hire you, they're companies that are spreading internationally. They have a global reach now, whether it be e-commerce or online courses or anything along those lines. So you want to see if you can combine your translation with something else. So if you're translating for online courses, become familiar with these online platforms and see if you can help say, look, I can translate and upload it directly onto the website. I can subtitle correctly, so it's good for Udemy, Skillshare, whatever it might be. Or if you're specializing in e-commerce, get familiar with the e-commerce websites of the various countries and show how you can work directly with them. You have your own account, so maybe you can work directly and upload to there. Now, I've talked before about people who do stuff like this. Like I know a French translator who also specializes in accounting practices, and so basically is able to translate into French and translate all the financials so that they follow the standards practices there in France, rather than just translating what was written in English. And this is very valuable to companies. So try to see if you can do that. If you can combine your specialization and add a bit more to provide to the clients, just for that added value that is only specific to your industry and to your specialization. And that way you can get noticed and you'll be worth a lot more in the industry. And that's basically it. So let's summarize quickly. You should A, be dealing with smaller agencies. B, join an association if you can. C, narrow down niche as much as you can. And D, try to find a way that makes you stand out, adding something to the translation that makes your clients' lives easier. And this will depend on you and on the countries you deal with, on the specialization of the industry, but find a way to do that and you'll be in a very good place going forward as a translator from here on out. Anyway, those are my feelings. Those are my suggestions. Please feel free to let me know if you disagree or if you have other thoughts. I'd love to hear about them. Obviously, I'm going to link to all of these articles down below so you can have a look and kind of go through them in detail yourself and see what you think about them. Anyway, that's it from me for now, and I'll talk to you next time. Okay, thanks. Bye. Savedum.